All right, so I wanted to make this video just as like a review for these quarter panels from Classic Fab. And overall, majority of the stuff that I bought from them, like these rockers, the floors, the inner wheel wells, everything was pretty good. So I got to these quarter panels thinking I get the same quality, and I definitely did not. I just want to set it straight that I am not a professional. Maybe I could have done things differently. This is just me being a hobbyist and doing something that I love and enjoy. I'm not doing professional work or anything like that. I do try to do a good quality job if I can. I'm obviously learning as I go. And yeah, so I just want to show some of the struggles that I have with these quarter panels, just to kind of throw it out there. Just in case somebody else wants to buy these panels, this is pretty much what you should expect, or at least this is my experience. All right, so I'm just gonna start on this passenger side. This is the first panel I did. Not as many issues on this side as there were on the other side, the driver's side. So let's just start. We'll start in the back here. So this right here, it is dropped down just a little bit. This does need to come up. I think what I'm most likely going to do is end up cutting this completely straight and then notching this and kind of bringing it up some. Even though it's welded in place, I still think I'm going to be able to do that. That way it's seamless all the way across. This was way off. It was sticking out probably that far. So I just cut that, kind of bent it in, and that looks pretty good now. I did have to work this inside right here and here to be able to get this taillight panel to properly sit in here. I still have to do a little bit more work just to kind of smooth it out and finish it. All right, so we go up here, and the gaps with the trunk, I took it off, but the gaps with the trunk are pretty good until you get up to the top right there. And this piece is actually wider, as you can see how it like steps down. So I'm actually gonna have to grind this to be able to match it. It's wider than this piece up here, and it's like that on both sides. So it's wider right here too. All right, so the next thing on this side was this inner structure right here. I had to notch that to be able to get this panel up against the inner structure to be able to weld it to. So I don't know if this like inner wheel well, like the length or like the depth of it is too long and it's causing this quarter panel to be pushed out some, but I didn't have any issues with the factory quarter panel when I took it off. It sat up there nice and tight. And the driver's side, I didn't have an issue with that. So I'm not really sure why it was like that. So I just notched it and seam sealed it. It is what it is. So let's go up to here. So this piece, this entire dogleg area, it's almost as if this is too short. So I guess the reason why I say that, or to a degree, it's too short but too long. So like right here, it's too short. It doesn't properly wrap over this. And then down here, it was too long. I actually had to cut all the way across because it was too long pushing it off of this rocker. And then the other thing I had with this was flared out this way. And I could actually rock this back and forth. It was so bad. So if I matched it up against this, it'd be flared out way this way. So it'd be like straight and then flared. Instead of, like an even. If it was completely flared, say like if it was like this, that would make more sense. But it was flared like right here, and that's where I made this cut to be able to get this to come back straight and have it aligned with everything else. So this area is probably definitely going to have some body work done to be able to make sure it matches all the way across. And you can see right here where I cut that to be able to bring this in. So another thing right here, this is too short. This is actually supposed to come up further. I don't even have enough room to be able to plug weld this, so I kind of tacked it in place so it could stay. I'm going to work this area later and do something different. Obviously, that's not finished. The holes right here, those were off, and the measurements from here on this side of this panel is different than the holes on the driver's side. But it lines up perfectly right here. So there is really no movement back and forth. Those holes are just in the wrong spot. I mean, if there was like this metal that this panel sits on is very, very thick metal. It's not gonna move unless you absolutely force it. So for this to be out of alignment and that being off, and say like you were to fix that alignment and then it would line up, it just doesn't make sense because it lines up here, it lines up with the back, those holes are off. Okay, so moving on to the next issue I had. So this is my OEM one. So I bought two different kinds. I'm using a soft touch sensor, so I'm trying to use the aftermarket one that's plastic that'll read through this, so I can use that soft touch sensor. But we'll just use this OEM one for reference. So we got 3 pins, 3 holes, right? These holes are way off. They don't even come anywhere near close to lining up. Well, so you can see. Yeah, they don't line up. So those holes are drilled in the wrong spot. I'm gonna have to grind them down or clean this up, plug it, and then put new holes in. So a little disappointing on that. So moving on to the driver's side. I did have to cut this about right there and then spread it out to be able to match this. I did go a little bit higher just because I want to weld this seamless. That way it looks like a smooth transition all the way across and onto the other side. Normally this piece would be overlapping. It would be on top of it pretty much. So I ended up with like a big hole, and I still have to work this area. There's a small little pinhole that needs welded, and I need to grind that down, and eventually it'll get finished when I move on to my body work. So yeah, that had to get done. That was way off. I think it was almost an inch further down than that side. So I didn't have to notch this inner frame or clearance it to be able to get this panel to sit up against this rocker and up against this inner structure. I don't know why I keep calling that a rocker. Wheel well, inner wheel well. So another thing I had to do on this backside, I had to cut this entire inside out to be able to move this forward because it was that far off. And I'll show you what I mean. We're still off, and if I were to get those holes right here to line up, I would almost have no flange at all back here. And then my depth from here to here would be off, kind of like how that measurement there. If I were to move this forward, it would never come close to that, and the trunk would be way far off. So it's almost as if this panel right here needs to be cut down the middle or more towards this front side and then kind of stretch some. I do have a video, I'll crop it in or whatever. You can see the door gap is like massive, and right here we have this gap, and on the other side we do not. So I'll show you how far off this is. Oh, I actually can't. All right, so I'll crop my other video where it shows the gap. I actually kind of cut this down a little bit and then welded up the holes. As you can see right there, there's one that I welded up. That way it'll look finished by the time I get done. Same with this. The other hole was like right here. It needed to be up there, so I ended up being way far off. The slower section I didn't really have too many issues with. As you can see, this is a lot further up on the rocker. Yep, same thing on this side. It ended up being a little bit wider than the OEM factory pillar, so that'll have to get notched down too. So yep, that's just my experience. Like I said, I think for the amount of money that you spend on these panels, I think you should get better quality. There's quite a bit of issues that, in my opinion, could be avoided. I talked to a guy from Classic Fab, and he told me nobody has any issues with them. He sells hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these panels, and nobody calls and complains. And yeah, I'm not sure if I really believe that. But when I built my 67, I think I spent just over $200. It was like $220 for a quarter panel, and it fits so much better than these. And I believe these panels are like $750, so almost 4 times the price. And I worked on this panel a lot longer than I did for the 67 to be able to get this to fit. Alright, so that's where I'm going to end the video. Just take it with a grain of salt. I think for $750 you should be able to get better quality panels. So if you guys buy them, I would suggest get ready for some work. That's all I gotta say. Oh, I did miss one thing. This was a 1/4 inch off. So I could have cut this down and stretched it to be able to match that, but I figured door or the window panel is gonna be here. The frame and everything will kind of fill this spot. There'll be like a gasket here. You're not really gonna see that. So I just ended up folding it over and welding it. But that is another quality control issue. That is really off. And I believe it was like a 1/4 inch. As you can see, it should look like that. All right, so thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys get some good info out of this, and if you decide to buy the same panels, be prepared to work, because they are going to take a lot of work.